What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Show, where I, Graham G.S. Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network and the USA Network, as today we're talking Season 1, Episode 6 of Straight Up Steve Austin, featuring country music star Trace Adkins. Now, I think Steve said last week that this episode was supposed to air after SmackDown on Tuesday, that this was supposed to be the Season 1 finale, but I guess not. They have Dale Earnhardt Jr., if I'm pronouncing that correctly, a NASCAR driver, after SmackDown tonight. So I'll be breaking down that episode a little later on in the weekend, probably Friday. But this was still a very good episode. I'm not a country music guy by any stretch, but Steve always brings the best out of his guests, and this was no exception. Adkins actually arrives in a helicopter to this episode. So we go from Steve picking up Becky Lynch a week or two ago. I think it was 2 weeks ago, yeah. Steve picking up Becky in his mother-in-law's car, to Adkins arriving in a helicopter. And then Steve, no slouch himself, arrives with a monster truck, and they start driving that around wherever they are. Adkins talks about when he's not on the road, he enjoys being on his farm, which he bought after his first album went platinum years ago. That's when he got that awesome farm of his. He talks accidentally cutting off his pinky finger many years ago. I forgot what he said he was doing, but he had a knife on him, or he was opening up a can or something like that, and he cut his pinky finger, maybe not clean off, but it was hanging off where his finger should be. So he took it to a doctor, and the doctor, they were able to get it back on, but the original idea was to have the pinky just flat out, because he can't move the muscles in his pinky. And this might have been before he started singing and that whole thing. And this might have been really early on in his life. Maybe when he was in his late teens, early 20s, whatever. I assume so. That's how he made it kind of sound like. But he said the doctor was going to make it just go straight up. So he couldn't move the muscles, but it would still be, I guess, functional to a certain extent. But he said, actually, no, this must have been after he started singing and doing his, whole music career. Because he said, no, because if you have it that way, I can't use it. That does me no good. Have it, bent at an angle. So at least when I'm playing the guitar, I could still use it. And that's how he's had it ever since, which is pretty interesting. He talks about getting into the music industry, seeing other people get into the music industry. As long as you love it, he doesn't really care how you break into the industry. He says he doesn't really get nervous. He says he has to be honest, where he doesn't really get nervous performing anymore, but he does get nervous performing the national anthem, because he knows that if you mess that up, you're going to end up on YouTube one way or another. They drive through some mud in the monster truck. It's pretty crazy, pretty reckless. I don't know if I would ever enjoy something like that, but they seem like they're having a blast doing it. They then cook some brisket, barbecue, whatever, with Big Mo Kaysen, who gives us a kind of a 411 on how to make barbecue. I think it's deer, and they talk about how you have to cook it for 6 hours, but thankfully they already had one in the cooker when Steve and Trace were there, so they eat that one. They enjoy it. Adkins talks about he's very partial to Texas barbecue. They drink some beer, which I don't think is Steve Austin's IPA. Otherwise, I feel like they would have said that or made it a point to point that out, that they were drinking Steve Austin's beer. They didn't say what beer it was. They were just drinking beer. But anyway, Steve asks Trace, how did you make the transition from playing football to playing music? And Trace says, I met guys in a band over in Louisiana, and he was playing with them during his 2 weeks off, I think from either work or football. So he would play with them in their band, and that's how he kind of got, kind of fell in love with music. He then got married to his second wife, and this must have been pretty early on, and she wanted to move, and she gave him the choice. He said Nashville, and it was there that he got a construction job, and while there he would play on his time off, met the right people, and things started to work out for him. He didn't know that this was always something he wanted to do, though, until a little later on, until he started to do it, and found out that he was good at it and that he enjoyed it. He also talks about getting shot at one point. Again, I don't know when this was. He doesn't give an exact timeline. But he got shot. Or how he got shot, I don't know. I don't know how that's a question that Steve doesn't ask, Maybe it's already public knowledge. Maybe it's something I can find out about more myself. But he says he got shot one time. The bullet went... It was a pretty bad injury, he said. That the bullet went straight through his heart from one end of his body to the other. like if you're standing straight up, not like through the chest, but like through your side and out through the other side. It went through his lungs. It was pretty bad. It wasn't when he got shot initially that he thought he wouldn't make it. It was rather during the second surgery when he was told, months, weeks later, whatever, that he had to have a second surgery. He thought he wouldn't make it. Because he was talking about how, when you get shot, you're in shock. You're not really thinking about, am I going to make it? Am I going to die? Blah, blah, blah. You're just thinking about surviving at that point. So when you have more time on your hands, the only thing really running through your mind at that point is, am I going to make it through the second surgery after kind of getting lucky the first time? And he obviously did. He talks about having an altercation with an impersonator on a cruise one time. Some guy who pretended to be him, like to a serious extent. He confronted him, and that was that, and he hasn't done it since, he said. The impersonator has not done it since, he said. They then meet up with Master Bike Builder. That's a tongue twister. Master Bike Builder Jason Wilson, who they then proceed to make a boat/jet ski with. So it's a boat, but they, attach a motor onto it, kind of make it look like a jet ski. It's pretty cool. They then Trace talks about fishing and his love for that. He talks about an accident he had, shares some stories. They start riding the boat, begin fishing. He talks about some advice that Buck Owens gave him, a very famous songwriter, musician, artist from years ago, saying that, to hit that really, really low note, because Trace has a really deep voice, and he said that Buck Owens told him to hit that note every single time, and that's how he would become a star, and obviously he did. So again, he shares some more stories. He says that he's enjoying what he's currently doing, and Austin asks him, how long do you think he'll continue to do this? And he says, well, I'll keep doing it until no one wants to hear me sing anymore. And he doesn't really have any more lofty goals. He has kids, grandkids, kind of watching them grow up is really the only thing he's interested in moving forward. And that does it. They sign off, they head off, and they ride off into the sunset to close out this episode. And Steve gives his, lessons learned, the things that he learned from his, day spent with Trace Adkins, one of which being that no matter how hard life gets, you just sew up your pinky and you just keep fucking moving on. So, great episode here. Again, I'm not a big country music guy, and this episode may not be for everyone. You may think, this is boring. I'm not a country music person. Who cares? But Steve, like I said earlier, always brings the best out of all of his guests, no matter who it is, whether it's, Gabriel Iglesias like last week, or Sal Vulcano, Baker Mayfield, Rob Riggle, Becky Lynch, Trace Adkins. Doesn't matter who it is. I enjoy the episode regardless. And this was no different. A very good episode of straight up Steve Austin. And I do got to say this too. If Trace shaved his head, because there was one point, this is so random, but there was one point in the episode, it may have been when they were in the monster truck together. They were wearing similar like mesh hats, like camo mesh hats, and then they both had the same kind of similar sunglasses on, and I could have sworn that they looked exactly alike. Trace Adkins looks like a much older version of Steve Austin with hair. It was amazing. Maybe that was just me. Maybe that's like, maybe it was the goatee. I don't know. But they looked a lot alike in this episode, and they had a lot in common. So, again, a very entertaining episode of Straight Up Steve Austin, per usual. So check it out on the USA Network. Couldn't watch it live, but I did catch up on it on the USA Network website, where you can watch it in full the very next day. I watched it this morning, so. We have the season finale tonight after SmackDown, I believe, with, again, I might be pronouncing his name wrong, so I apologize if I am, but Dale Earnhardt Jr., he's a NASCAR driver. I know I've heard the name before. That'll be airing after SmackDown tonight, and that'll be it for Season 1 of Straight Up Steve Austin. Hopefully it performed well enough in the ratings where they will bring it back at some point. It's USA Network. I imagine they will. I mean, they brought back Ms. and Mrs., and the ratings, I guess for that, were pretty impressive during Season 1. I'm not exactly sure, but they renewed that for a second season, and then, not to say they're desperate for content, they're desperate for programming, but they don't really have much else going on in the network these days. They don't really have Monk or Psych anymore. Suits, I think, is ending soon. Burn Notice ended, I know, years ago, so Royal Pains was another good show. they might need more content. So I think renewing Steve Austin's show for a second season wouldn't exactly be too out of the question. So we'll see. But anyway, thank you guys for checking out the video. As always, appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. I uploaded all the videos I took at Sunday's Skillet concert at the Big E in West Springfield, Massachusetts. My first time seeing Skillet live. Awesome experience. Been a fan of theirs for like 10 years now and got all their major hits on video. So check those out here on the channel in the live reactions playlist. More Wrestle Rant videos to come. Hashtag AskGSM tomorrow. Wrestle Rant radio excerpts and everything else. So subscribe today for more daily content. Until next time, guys, I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.